Hello world, and welcome to Passion Corners. Quick question, do you enjoy dark mode? Well, if you do, then in this video, we will explore a simple approach to make that happen. And as always, this is what we're going to be building. A minimal layout that includes a header and a banner. But most important of all, we can toggle this layout from light to dark mode. And believe it or not, it's not as complicated as you may think. So I hope you're excited to get started, and I'll see you in VS Code. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is create our project folder. I've created mine right here and call it COVID_LP, and LP stands for landing page. Once you have your project folder, drag that into VS Code. And next we want to set up our project. So let's create our index.html file. And then we also want to create our main CSS file and also our main JavaScript file. Next, let's create a folder and call it img, and this will hold all of our images. Alright, now let's link all these files together. So in our index.html, if you're using VS Code, let's type doc and then press tab. This will create a boiler snippet for us. Now let's navigate to our title tag and let's say dark mode. On top of this, let's create our link tag and then link our main CSS file. Next, let's navigate to our body and have our script tag. We also want to link up our JavaScript file right here. So now let's go get the font that we will be using in this project. So let's open a browser. Let's navigate to Google Font. And the font we want to search for is called Nonito, this one right here. And let's select the regular 400 and also the 700 bold. Let's copy this link. Now back into VS Code. Let's paste it up here on top of our link tag. Now give this a quick save. Alright, now before we start building, let's take a closer look at our design. And the design is available in the description of this video where you can download it as an Adobe XD file. So I will open up Adobe XD. And here is our design. We have our light mode and our dark mode right here. Here is our header and here's our banner. It will be a 2 columns layout. And here's our toggle button. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is apply some global style. So back into VS Code and then in our main CSS file. Alright, so before we apply our global style, I will be using a VS Code extension called Live Server so we can see our changes on the fly. So if I right click in the index.html file and then say open with live server, now our live server is active and we can see our changes on the fly. Next, I also want to open a browser within VS Code so we can set up our mobile view. So back in VS Code, let's press Shift Command P and search for something called symbol browser right here. Press enter and then it will ask us to put in our live server URL, which is http:// localhost, and the port number for me is 5500. And here is our browser within VS Code. The next thing we want to do is click this icon right here to have a split screen mode and drag our browser over here to the right. Next, let's resize this to a mobile screen. So about right here is good. Alright, now we can see our changes on mobile and desktop view. Now let's apply our global style. So back in main CSS, let's create our comment. So global. And then the first thing we want to do is remove all default spacing. So this will help us to position things more easier. Let's say asterisk. So asterisk will select all the elements in our index.html file. And then we also want to select the pseudo class of before and after. Now let's give it a margin of 0 and padding of 0. We also want to say box sizing will be border box. Next, let's target our body tag and say the font family will be Nonito. And we also want a fallback font. Let's say serif will be the fallback font. After this, let's define our container. Let's give it a max width of 1640 pixel. And we also want to say width 100% to keep it responsive. And then we also want to center things. So let's say margin 0 auto. Next, let's define our wrapper. Let's give it a padding of 0 top and bottom and then 15 pixel left and right. So in mobile screen, our elements won't be flush all the way to the side. It will have a padding of 15 left and 15 right. Now let's define our media query. So at media, let's use min width of 62M, and this will be about 992 pixel. Let's target our wrapper. And in desktop mode, we want our padding still to be 0 top and bottom, but this time it will be 138 pixel left and right. So in our design file, this right here will be our container, and this right here will be our wrapper. It will have a padding of 138 pixel left and right on desktop mode. All right, back in VS Code. The next thing we want to do is target our image tag, and let's give it a max width of 100% and a width of 100%. This will keep our images responsive. All right, let's give this a quick save. All right, now let's define the structure in our HTML. So back in our index.html file, we want to start with our header. So let's put it here in our body tag, and let's say header for our comments. Next, we want a header tag with a class of container. And then inside that, we want a nav tag with a class name of navbar. And the structure of our navbar begins with our logo and then our links. So let's start with our logo. Let's have a div with a class name of navbar __ logo. And inside that, let's have a paragraph tag and say logo. Next, let's work on our links. So let's have our UL tag with a class name of navbar __ links. Inside that, let's have our list item. So li with a class name of navbar __ link, singular. And then inside that, we want our anchor tag. And our first link will say home. For the href, let's put hashtag. And now we want to duplicate this 3 times. And now our second link will be about. Next will be pricing. And then demo. After this, we want our toggle button. So let's have a div with a class name of navbar __ toggle. And inside that, we want an input. And let's give it a class name of navbar __ toggle -btn. The type will be a checkbox. And then below this, we want to give it a label. And it will be for a switch. So let's have an ID right here and say switch. All right, let's give this a quick save. And here's our header. Let's style it. So in our main CSS, let's scroll down here and say header. First, let's target our header tag and give it a padding of top and bottom 0 and then 15 pixel left and right. Now let's target our navbar and then let's give it a display of flex. Our flex direction will be column because in mobile view, we want everything to be vertical. Next, let's say justify contents center and also align item center. Let's give it a mid height of 280 pixel. Now let's target our navbar logo. So navbar __ logo. Let's give it a font size of 1.625 rem and our font weight will be 700. Next, let's transform the text to be uppercase and then our text color will be black. Now let's target our navbar links. So navbar __ links. Let's also give it a display of flex and our flex direction will also be column. Justify content center and also align item center. Let's give it a padding top of 15 pixel and then our text alignment will be center. All right, now let's target the individual link. So let's say navbar __ link. We want to remove the bullet list. So let's say list style will be none. And let's give it a padding of 5 pixel top and bottom and 0 left and right. After this, let's target our anchor tag. So let's say navbar _ link and then our a tag. Let's give it a text decoration of none to remove the underline. And let's say the font size will be 1.25 rem. Next, our text color will be black. And then we want our text transform to be capitalized. Let's also define a transition. So let's say all 0.3 second ease in. This will give us a smooth hover. So now let's define our hover. So navbar _ link a : hover. So when we hover, let's change our text color to be the purple. So in Adobe XD, let's get this purple right here. I'll copy the hex code back into VS Code, paste it in. We also want to define a transition, so let's copy this line right here and then paste it here. Now let's give this a quick save, and here's our header, our hover state. Now let's work on our toggle button. So let's say toggle button. Now let's target our input. So navbar underscore underscore toggle hyphen btn, and let's give it a height of 0, a width of 0, and the visibility will be hidden. So we actually want to hide the checkbox input and use our label to be the toggle button. Let me show you what I mean. So back into main CSS, let's target our label, and this will be our background. First, let's give it a cursor of pointer, a width of 63 pixel, and then a height of 31 pixel. Our background color will be the purple. So let's copy this color. And we want to display a block. Next, let's give it a border radius of 30 pixel because we want it to be a round button. And then we want it position relative because we're going to use a pseudo class to make the circle. So now let's say label colon after. Let's define the content and it will be empty. Next, we want to give it a position of absolute. Top will be 3 pixel. Left will be 5 pixel. Our width will be 25 pixel. And also our height will also be 25 pixel. Now we want a circle, so let's say border radius to be 50%. And our background will be white. Let's give it a transition of 0.3 second. Now give this a quick save. And here we have our toggle button. The next thing we want to do is have the animation. When we click the button, the circle will transition from left to right. Alright, so in main CSS, let's say toggle animation. So what we want to do is target the input check state. So let's say navbar underscore underscore toggle btn and then colon checked. So in our check state, we want to target our label. And we want to make sure our background will be the purple. So this color. And the reason we want to do this because let's jump into our design file. So when we toggle this button, the background changes from purple to white. And later on, we will use JavaScript to do this. So therefore, we have to define it first. So now back in VS Code, the next thing we want to do is target the circle. So navbar toggle btn, the check state. And then we want to target the label after. We want to say left and use our calc. Let's say 100% minus 5 pixel. And then we want to say transform translate x to be a negative 100%. And then we also want to define the background again to be white. Let's give this a quick save. And here's our toggle button. So everything looks good on mobile. Let's check out our desktop view. Here's our desktop view. So let's position everything horizontally. Now back in VS Code, let's target our media query. So add media, min width, 62M. First, we want to target our navbar. And let's say the flex direction will be row. And then we want to say justify content, space between. We want our logo to be on the left and our links to be on the right. Let's also adjust the min height to be 140 pixel instead of 280. Next, let's target the navbar links. And say the flex direction will also be row. Now we want to target the individual link. Let's give it a margin of 0 top and bottom and then 35 pixel left and right. Alright, give this a quick save and check out our desktop. And here's a header. Now let's work on our banner. So back into VS Code. In index.html, I will collapse our header tag. And let's have our comments of banner right here. Next, let's have a section of an ID of banner. And inside that, we want our container. And then our wrapper. So our banner will have a text and then an image. So let's work on the text, and let's have a div with a class name of banner underscore underscore desk. Desk stands for description. And the first thing we want to have is the title. So let's have an h1, and then our detail, a paragraph tag. And then we also have a button. So let's have a div with a class name of banner underscore underscore CTA. CTA stands for call to action. And then inside that, we want an anchor tag with a class name of banner underscore underscore CTA hyphen BTN. And we want it to say learn more inside that. For the href, let's put the hashtag. All right, now in our design file, let's get our title right here. I will paste it here in the h1. Now into our detail. So let's copy this sentence and then paste it here. All right, cool. Now we have our description. Let's work on our image. So let's have a div with a class name of banner underscore underscore img. And then inside that, we want our image tag. We want to look inside our image folder for a file called app.png. And let's have our alt tag to say phone mockup. So you can find this image in the project GitHub repository, or you can just export it out from the design file. All right, let's give this a quick save. And here's our banner. Let's style it. So back into main CSS. Let's scroll up. I will say banner right here. Let's target our banner. So let's say banner. The first thing we want to do is give it a margin bottom of 5%. So this will give us this margin bottom right here. It won't be flush all the way right here. Next, let's target our wrapper. Let's give it a display of flex, and the flex direction will be column. Next, let's target the banner image. So banner underscore underscore img. So we want the image to be on top of the description. So let's say order to be 1. And now we want to target our description. So desk, and give it an order of 2. Give this a quick save. I might have a typo, so back in index.html. This section right here is supposed to be outside of the banner desk div. So we had to put it right here. Now give this a quick save. And as you can see, our image is on top of the description. So back in main CSS, let's have a text align center in our description. Now let's target the h1. So banner desk h1. Let's give it a font size of 4 rem. Our text color will be black. And then we want to give it a text transform of capitalize. Next, let's target our sentence. So desk, our paragraph tag. Let's give it a font size of 1.5 rem. Our text color will also be black. Let's give it a padding top of 15 pixel. And let's define a max width of 700 pixel and a width of 100%. All right, give this a quick save. And here's our title and our description. Let's work on our button right here. So let's say banner underscore underscore CTA. Let's give it a margin top of 45 pixel. And then we want to target the button itself. Let's give it a position of relative, because what we have is a gradient button, and we're going to use a pseudo class to create this gradient, and we're going to position it to be absolute. So we need it to be relative to something, and therefore the main element have to be relative. All right, next, let's say display going to be inline block. We want the overflow to be hidden. Our text decoration will be none. Our text color will be black. Our font weight will be 400. The cursor will be pointer. We want to give a padding of 1 EM top and bottom and 2 EM left and right. Next, our font size will be 1.125 rem. We want to give it a border radius of 2M. It's going to be a round button. And we want the text transform to be uppercase. And now our border will be none. We do not want any border. And finally, we want to give it a box shadow, so the button won't appear to be all flat. Let's say 0, 13 pixel, 27 pixel, and then -5 pixel. Next, let's say RGBA of 50, 50, 93, and the alpha level will be 0.25. All right, let's give this a quick save. And here's our button. Now let's work on the gradient color. So we're going to target the pseudo class of before and after. So let's say banner, CTA BTN, and before. Let's duplicate this line and let's say after. First, we want the content to be empty. Next, let's say display block. And our position will be absolute. Let's say top 0, left 0, bottom 0, and then right 0. Now let's use background image for a gradient, and let's say linear gradient to right. Our first color will be the purple. So let's scroll up and find that purple right here. And our second color will be the beige color. So in our design file, it is this color right here. I will copy the hex code back into VS Code. I'll paste it here. Next, let's also define the border radius of 2M. And then finally, a Z index of -1. Give this a quick save. And here's our gradient button. Now let's work on the hover effect for it. So currently our gradient is to right. So what I have in mind is when we hover, let's change the gradient to left. And this will give it a slight change. All right, so back in our main CSS. First, let's target the after pseudo class. So banner after. Let's give it an opacity of 0. And then our background image, linear gradient to left. We want the same colors. So let's copy this and paste it here. And then we also need to define the transition, and let's say opacity. It's gonna be 0.3 second. Let's use ease in out. Now let's define our hover. So banner after, and let's say hover right here. And then we want to say the opacity will be 1. All right, give this a quick save. And here's our hover. All right, cool. So once again, our mobile looks good. Let's check our desktop. All right, not so good, but we can fix that. So back into VS Code. Let's use our media query. So add media. And once again, min width 62M. Let's target our banner. And the margin bottom, let's remove it. Now our wrapper, let's say the flex direction will be row. And then let's use justify content space between to space everything out. And then also align item center. Next, let's target the banner image. And let's reorder it and give it an order of 2. And then also our banner description. And give it an order of 1. We also want to change the text alignment back to initial because we no longer want it to be center. So give this a quick save and check out our desktop. And here it is. All right, now that we have our layout, let's implement our dark mode feature. So the approach that we're taking is define all colors in a variable. So our light mode will hold our current set of color, and then our dark mode will hold another set of color. Let me show you what I mean. So back into VS Code. Let's scroll all the way up to our global section. And let's define our variables right here on top of media. We want to say :root. This will allow us to define variables. First, we want to target the background color. And initially, our background color will be white. And then we also want to define a second background color. So back in our design file, here in our light mode, we only have one color and it's white. But in our dark mode, there's actually 2 colors and it's a gradient from black to this purple right here, which is this purple. So let's copy this color. Back in VS Code. All right, we're not going to paste that color in yet because we're going to keep it white still here. But when we define our dark mode, we're going to overwrite that with that dark purple color. So the next color we want to define is our text color. And by default, it will be black. Next, let's also define the purple. And it is hashtag A8 EEB. Next, let's define our beige color. So it is hashtag FFEAE2. Now let's define our toggle background color. So by default, it will be the purple. And then we also want to define our toggle circle. And by default, it will be white. So right here, So our toggle button default, it will have a background of purple and a default circle of white. But when it is dark mode, the background will be white and then the circle will be purple. All right, so back in VS Code, let's define our dark mode. So let's say dark mode, and then we want to overwrite these colors when it is in dark mode. So let's copy everything here. And we do not need the beige and purple, so let's delete that. All right, now to our first background color, let's say black. Let's copy this color. Let's paste it here. And then our text color will be white. Our toggle background color will be white. And then the circle will be the purple. All right, now that we have our light and dark mode colors, let's change all of our colors to use the variable that we just defined. So first, let's target our body tag. And let's use the background linear gradient. So let's say background image, linear gradient to right. We want to use our variables, and it's going to be BG color. And the second color will be BG color 2. Now let's scroll down to our header. So let's change the text color right here to use our variable. So it is text color. All right, let's scroll down. The next one is our anchor tag. So text color. And then our hover, let's use the purple. So var purple. Let's scroll down. Here's our label background. So let's use our var toggle BG. And here's the circle. So let's use var toggle circle. And then here, var toggle BG. And here will be var circle. All right, let's scroll down. In our H1, we will use these text color. Also in a paragraph tag. And then also in our button. Let's scroll down. For the linear gradient, you can change it if you want to, but it will still work if we just use the default hex code. All right, let's scroll down. And I believe that's it. So give this a quick save. And now let's navigate to our main.js file. So the next thing we want to do is use JavaScript to toggle our dark mode on. The first thing we want to do is target our toggle button. So let's say cons and let's say dark mode. We want to say document.createSelector. And our button, we gave it an ID of switch. Now we want to add an event listener to the switch button. So let's say dark mode, add event listener. And the event we want to listen for is the change event. So remember, this is actually a checkbox, and the event will be the uncheck and check event. And that's what we want to listen for. All right, so if there's a change, let's run a arrow function. And inside that, we want to overwrite the default color with our dark mode color. And the way we do that is target our body tag. So let's say document.body. And then we want to say class list.toggle. And the class we want to toggle is the dark mode class. So give this a quick save. And then let's try it out. So when we click toggle, we will have our light and dark mode. Let's check out our desktop. Dark mode, light, dark, light. And voila, now our layout have a dark mode feature. And this is our approach to implement dark mode. And you can apply the same concept to your own project. There will be a few tweaks here and there, but I'm confident you can make it happen. I hope that was fun and that you learned something new. And I also hope that earned your thumbs up. If you're facing any issue, jump over to our Facebook group. We'll be happy to help you. With that being said, I'll see you in the next tutorial.